You didn't find this video by coincidence. You weren't the one who clicked heaven orchestrated this moment. This isn't just content, it's a spiritual summons. Long before this timeline ever began, you were already known, not by people, but by a prophet named Enoch, a man who walked so closely with God that even death had no hold on him. Enoch wasn't just a witness of his own era, he was granted a vision of ours, and in the timeless halls of eternity, he saw someone like you, a presence cloaked in human form, a soul too ancient to be shaped by this current system, a name spoken in sacred spaces, not for entertainment, but for divine intervention. Enoch was shown a remnant, not celebrities or crowds, but a small and sealed company, quiet, immovable, a threat to darkness. If something in your spirit is stirring right now, if it feels like something deep inside you is waking up, it's because this isn't the first time you've heard this. You've known it before in dreams, in moments of stillness, in the unexplainable longing that nothing in the world could satisfy. And now, it's returning. This message isn't meant for everyone. It's for those who were always meant to remember. Pause. Breathe. Let this moment settle. Because what's about to happen isn't information, it's your divine reactivation. If you sense that this message found you for a reason, hit like to come into agreement with it. Subscribe to stay connected to the flow of what heaven is releasing, and comment 99 below. Why 99? Because heaven will always leave the 99 to pursue the one carrying purpose, and today, that one is you. Enoch wasn't shown kingdoms, stadiums, or digital empires. He didn't see millions shouting in unison or influencers trending across platforms. What he saw was quieter but infinitely more powerful. He saw the sealed, not the loudest voices or the most followed names, not those with polished words or perfect resumes. He saw the ones with something inside that couldn't be compromised, the ones who never fit in, the ones who weren't built to blend, but born to disrupt. In his encounters with the divine, Enoch witnessed a group that didn't stand out by choice, they stood out because the world couldn't contain them. They resonated with a spiritual frequency too elevated for the system to interpret, carrying a vibration that disrupted deception simply by their presence. People often didn't understand why they felt uncomfortable around them, why they gossiped behind their backs, or instinctively avoided them. But heaven understood, because what has been sealed by God must remain distinct. These weren't individuals searching for the spotlight. They were drawn to sacred spaces, not stages. They weren't after influence, they were being refined to carry divine justice, spiritual authority, and restoration power. And now comes the unexpected truth. You were among them. Yes, you, the one who always felt deeply, who noticed things others brushed off, who entered rooms and either went unseen or felt too overwhelming. The reason you could never follow the crowd is because you were never made to be part of it. You were chosen not for applause, not for public recognition, but for moments like this. What you thought was rejection by the world was actually heaven's intervention. Because had you been embraced by them, your calling would have been compromised. Enoch didn't record the names of the celebrated. He saw the hidden ones, those ignited with the fire. They didn't spark themselves. These sealed individuals never needed an introduction. Their very being was a broadcast. Their movement, a message. Their presence, a disturbance to darkness. And maybe you've asked yourself why people respond to you with fear, envy, or confusion, often without reason. It's because the mark on your life reveals the things they try to keep buried. You weren't sent here to comfort others. You were sent to awaken what lies dormant. Enoch didn't see the ones who conformed. He saw the ones who would endure the silent burn for years, only to rise precisely when destiny called. And that's what this is, not your beginning, but your unveiling. You've been noticed, you've been marked. And now, you're being called forth. But here's the deeper mystery. The seal wasn't just divine protection, it was also a declaration. It didn't merely shield you, it assigned you a role no one else could fulfill. And the further you travel into this revelation, the more you'll realize your life was never random. Every delay, every rejection, every desert season, it was all orchestrated. So sacred was the design that even the enemy didn't recognize it, because when God seals something, no force in hell can interfere. You are not ordinary. You are not easily defined. You are not here for validation. You are here to be released into purpose. Enoch saw this, all of it, long before you ever took your first breath. But now, here's the question that matters most. If you were sealed for the final hour, what were you sealed to accomplish? That is the mystery we're about to unravel. So stay with me. The revelation only grows deeper from this point. Let's talk about what others overlooked. The ache you carried as a child, the unseen burden that followed you into adolescence, the long, suffocating nights where you cried for answers, only to hear your own heartbeat echo in the dark. That wasn't punishment, it wasn't meaningless, it was divine preparation. Because before heaven entrusts someone with authority, it walks them through agony. Before you can stand in the fire unshaken, you must first be consumed by it in secret over and over until nothing remains but truth. Enoch didn't just see the chosen, he witnessed their shaping. And what he saw wasn't glamorous, wasn't public, and certainly wasn't easy. He saw lives being crushed behind the curtain, shaped through betrayal, isolation, and pain, and still choosing to love through it all. You kept choosing God when it would have been easier to walk away. You chose alignment over attention, surrender over applause. You weren't overlooked, you were handpicked. You weren't forgotten, you were being held back for a reason, so that when your moment arrived, you wouldn't erupt from emotion, you'd release divine insight. That broken childhood, the missing parent, the emptiness no one else noticed, all of it was intricately connected to your purpose. Not because suffering was your fate, but because your assignment demanded depth. And true depth only comes through breaking. You wept behind closed doors while others laughed without a care. You wore smiles like armor just to survive another day in a world that couldn't recognize your spirit. You tried to fit in, but fitting in always felt like fading away. Why? Because pain was your classroom, and your soul, your eternal, God-breathed self, was being taught by heaven itself. While others studied scripture, you were learning through isolation. While they memorized doctrine, you memorized what it felt like to silently bleed while still clinging to belief. That's what set you apart. Not the talent, not the insight, not even the calling. It was the wounds you refused to waste. The pain you turned into wisdom. You were being forged, not for influence, but for intercession, for spiritual authority, for generational transformation. And here's the part that should shake you to your core. Every scar you covered, every tear you cried alone, every why me whispered into the silence, it was all recorded. Heaven missed none of it, because your formation wasn't random. It was the fulfillment of prophecy, playing out in real time. Enoch saw it long before anyone else did. He saw the ones who didn't fit, the deep feelers, the thinkers, the ones whose hearts ached in a world too numb to care. But they weren't being broken to be discarded. They were being poured out so they could one day be distributed. You, chosen one, you've been poured out for years in hidden places. But what happens when the vessel that's been shattered in private becomes the conduit of glory in public? What happens when the one who was shaped in silence is summoned to speak aloud? That's what darkness fears. Not your fame, not your reach, but the weight you carry. Because a voice forged through pain doesn't tremble, it makes others tremble. You didn't endure all that heartbreak for nothing. It was your initiation. It was your calling wrapped in agony. It was prophecy in process. This was your divine certification. And now, the very pain that once threatened to destroy you has become the power that authorizes your calling. If pain was your training ground, then what was the final exam? You're about to find out, because this next revelation isn't just about what you've survived, it's about what you're beginning to remember. And that memory, it's far more spiritual than you've ever imagined. Stay locked in. This is the moment when the sealed ones stop merely surviving and begin awakening for real. But let me offer you a truth that might append everything you thought you knew. You're not awakening, you're remembering. That stirring you feel in your soul, the dreams that feel like déjà vu. The eerie moments where time feels familiar. Where something inside you whispers, I've seen this before. That's not imagination. It's not a passing spiritual phase. That is divine memory resurfacing. That is ancestral recall breaking through the fog. You were never asleep like the rest of the world. You were buried beneath conditioning, beneath trauma, beneath the pressure to become what others needed you to be. But even then, the flame in you never died. Because you weren't created by this age, you were deployed into it. You didn't arrive here as a blank canvas. You came encoded with mission, with blueprints, with ancient scrolls written in fire and marked by dimensions beyond the limits of time. And now, as systems collapse and humanity reaches for meaning amid the chaos, something within you is activating. You're not discovering your identity, you're reclaiming it. You're unearthing who you were before life told you to forget. That's why you feel this urgency. Why certain places stir something deep. Why a single phrase, image, or symbol can hit you like thunder. It's not random. It's recognition. It's remembrance. These moments are familiar because they are part of your spiritual DNA. You are the echo of a prophecy once spoken in complete silence, a living embodiment of a realm that still exists. In every moment of your life, every wound, every pause, every detour has led you here. To this moment of sacred remembrance, you were marked before the pain, chosen before the shaping. And nothing, no betrayal, no trauma, no misstep can override the truth that was placed in you before time began. When Enoch envisioned the last days, he wasn't just shown the headlines or events. He saw individuals living vessels of restoration, carriers of divine justice, architects of unshakable things. He saw you, a soul called to remember what the world forgot. That's why the numbness that comforts others doesn't soothe you. Why small talk drains you. Why shallow pursuits and surface-level living leave you feeling out of place. Because your soul remembers eternity. And anything less feels unnatural. Enoch didn't merely see your actions, he saw your composition, your divine design, your essence, your internal frequency, your flame. You were created not to control through power, but to govern through awareness. You weren't made to impress with noise, but to restore through presence. That's why your silence carries authority. Why people feel the atmosphere shift when you enter a room. It's not charm, it's not energy, it's origin. What you're experiencing isn't confusion, it's remembrance. A deep spiritual memory is rising within you, radiating outward, and quietly calling others back to what their souls once knew. But this goes even deeper. Every time you sense déjà vu, every time a dream feels too vivid to dismiss, every time your spirit reacts before your mind can comprehend, it's not a glitch. It's alignment. You're being recalibrated to your original design. You don't need to become powerful, you already are. You're not searching for identity. You're peeling back the layers until your soul can finally say, yes, this is who I've always been. That's what true reactivation is, not adding to yourself, but revealing what's been buried. This is why your old habits no longer bring comfort, why familiar environments feel off, why former relationships and routines now carry a subtle dissonance. It's because the false version of youth, the one built by survival and shaped by pressure, is dying. And the real youth, the one hidden for such a time as this, is awakening, the one that Enoch saw, the one crafted for heavenly purpose. Every time you sit in silence and feel a pull in your chest, it's not anxiety, it's a summons. Every time your eyes well up for no clear reason, it's not sadness, it's recognition. And every time you sense you're stepping into something bigger than you can explain, it's not confusion, it's your eternal memory rising to the surface. You weren't sent here to begin a mission, you are the mission. You're not just carrying a message, you are the message, housed in flesh, encoded with destiny. And now that your soul is remembering, now that ancient truths are resurfacing in your DNA, the question isn't what should I do? The real question is, what am I willing to release so the true me can finally take the lead? Because what comes next is no longer about remembering, it's about manifestation. And the next phase will confront exactly why every system worked overtime to keep you numb, because your awakening was a threat. The battle against your memory was personal. But what comes now is divine retaliation. Have you ever stopped to ask why you've always felt like a misfit in structured systems? Why classrooms felt like cages? Why corporate spaces drained you? Why religion left you hungrier than when you arrived? Why your questions made others uncomfortable? Why your discernment was mislabeled as rebellion? Why so many people tried to dull your voice or make your presence more palatable? It's because the systems around you sensed your frequency long before you recognized it yourself. You're not just chosen, you're a disruptor. You were born carrying a frequency that cannot comply with control. Not because you're defiant, but because you are wired with divine sovereignty. That unease you felt your whole life isn't dysfunction, it's evidence that your soul was never meant to settle. You weren't designed to be domesticated, you weren't made to be managed. You were built to move dimensions. Your questions weren't rebellion, they were activations. Your discomfort wasn't weakness, it was your spirit rejecting misalignment. You don't belong in their systems because you were born to transform them. You were never built for comfort. You were shaped for something far more raw, something more real, more uncontainable. When Enoch saw the future, he didn't just see that you'd be set apart, he saw that you would become a threat to every false system cloaked in holiness, but rotting at its core. He foresaw individuals who would walk into religious spaces and cause unrest in the unseen. People who could enter families, corporations, or governments and disrupt generational curses without ever uttering a word. Because what they carried could not be manipulated, and what can't be controlled, the system tries to silence. That's why they pushed you out. Not because you didn't measure up, but because you were never supposed to blend in. You are divine disruption in motion. A living contradiction to the idols of this world. You don't seek validation. You radiate frequency. You don't conform, you shatter illusions simply by showing up. And that makes you dangerous to every agenda built on deception. You were never the easy choice because heaven didn't send you to play it safe, it sent you to challenge everything others were too afraid to question. Enoch saw that too. He saw a generation so anchored in truth that they would boldly declare what others only whispered, uncover what others protected, and carry spiritual fire into places addicted to fog and confusion. You were never sent to be liked. You were sent to disrupt, to confront, to tear down what's lifeless and rebuild what's divine. You weren't assigned to fit inside traditions that have long since lost their oil. You were forged to carry something new, to release something fresh, something heaven-breathed that can't be constructed on contaminated foundations. And that's why the system fears you. It knows that if you ever truly remembered who you are, if you ever owned your authority, walked in your voice without shrinking, moved without hesitation, loved without filters, it would be game over. Because your very presence brings judgment. Not in condemnation, but with a clarity so piercing that it unmasks everything fake in the room. You were never meant to bring comfort. You were born to confront. That's why your journey has been laced with confusion, self-doubt, identity battles, and the sting of rejection. Not because you're lacking, but because your power is unbearable to the systems trying to contain you. You've been watched, opposed, and misunderstood since the beginning, not due to weakness, but because your spirit carries weight that false systems can't survive. What they failed to realize is that every attempt to silence you only refined your discernment. Every season of isolation only fanned your inner fire. Every closed door wasn't a denial, it was divine delay. Not because you weren't ready, but because the world wasn't ready for you. The world promotes leaders it can manage. Heaven raises disruptors it can entrust. And you, chosen one, were never made to bow to anything broken. You were never meant to replicate what already exists. You were designed to carry a new model of the kingdom. And now, as outdated systems begin to collapse, your boldness will no longer be misunderstood or feared. It will become necessary. Because where others see threat, heaven sees a breakthrough. But here's the truth that cuts deeper. Your greatest confrontation won't begin outside of you, it will start within. The next level of your purpose requires you to face the strongest stronghold of all, the version of yourself that the system built inside you. Are you ready to burn down the false identity that's been masking your power? Because what comes next is your unfiltered emergence. The real you, unbound, unbent, unedited, is about to step forward. So pause. Stop everything. Silence the noise in your mind. Focus on your breath. Let this moment reach your bones. You are standing in the very timeline Enoch saw, not a distant future, not a metaphorical season, but this exact moment. Right here, right now. Before time had a name, before stars were spoken into being, before your body ever took form, your spirit was already moving through prophecy. Enoch, this enigmatic figure who walked with God so closely that death couldn't touch him, was not just given visions of chaos and judgment. He was shown something holy. He saw a hidden army, a divine remnant, not rising in times of peace, but emerging in the middle of global shaking. He saw a generation awaken, not slowly, not one by one, but all at once. He saw you, not passive, not uncertain, but blazing, not confused, but aligned. He didn't see spectators, he saw captains. He saw storm changers, those who wouldn't just watch the atmosphere, but shift it. And now, here you are, not by chance, not out of curiosity. You didn't stumble on this message, you were drawn to it. You're standing at the intersection where prophecy meets the present. This moment is not meant to inspire you, it is meant to identify you. That tightness in your chest, the warmth rising in your face, the weight pressing on your shoulders, that's not emotion. That's your scroll unlocking. That's the moment. Heaven says, now, your life hasn't just been meaningful, it's been strategic. Every delay was divine timing. Every wound had purpose. Every quiet, hidden season was sacred space where your true identity was shaped. What separates the chosen from the crowd isn't confidence or charisma, it's divine alignment with holy moments like this. Moments where memory and mission collide. Where your spirit stops searching and starts remembering. And maybe you're still asking, how do I know this is real? Because no random piece of content could echo the story of your life back to you this clearly. No algorithm could strike your spirit this precisely. No coincidence could make you feel like heaven just spoke your name. This isn't motivation. This is a calling. You were seen, you were set apart. You were foretold. And now you're being activated. Not for likes, not for applause, but for purpose. Because Enoch didn't see the world ending. He saw the veil lifting. He saw the moment when those who had been hidden, marked and refined would rise, not to build platforms, but to walk in true authority. You were chosen to dismantle generational patterns, to confront deception with piercing clarity, to carry revelation so sharp it slices illusion from truth. You were born to walk in union with heaven, to bring down divine blueprints never before seen, to rebuild what religion abandoned, and to live out what prophets could only declare in part. This isn't your conclusion, it's your commissioning. This is not the end. This is your entrance. Here's the tension you can't ignore. Now that your spirit has been stirred, you can't unhear what's been spoken. You can't retreat into slumber after heaven just shook you wide awake. You've crossed a spiritual threshold and there's no returning to who you were. You've stepped into something ancient, something sacred. You are now living inside a vision once seen by prophets long before you were born. And with that awakening comes the question that must be answered not lightly, but with full conviction. What will you do with what Enoch saw? Because in this moment, the choice is yours. Will this be just another powerful message that stirred you briefly? Or will this be the moment you embraced your divine assignment and stepped fully into destiny? What comes next won't simply require you to remember. It will demand that everything you've remembered becomes everything you manifest. Breathe deep. You're nearing the edge of full revelation. You can feel it, can't you? That holy flame, rising in your chest, that storm in your bones, that soul deep, knowing that nothing will ever be the same again. That's not emotion, that's confirmation. This wasn't a message, it was a mirror, a reflection of your eternal identity. You are not an accident. You are not late. You are not too far gone. You are right on time, exactly where prophecy placed you. Every spiritual whisper, every aching dream, every echo from another realm, it all led to now. You were seen long before you were shaped, you were called before you were conscious of your calling, and now you've been confirmed. You are who Enoch saw, a presence so unwavering that even silence could not erase your purpose. A soul so radiant that darkness spent years trying to bury your light. But you're still here, still burning, still rising. This is not the end of your search, it is the beginning of your emergence. Heaven wastes no words. and heaven just called your name. You now stand on the threshold between memory and manifestation, between surviving the world and governing it, between who you've been and who you've always been destined to become. You're not here to be inspired, you're here to be ignited. You weren't born to fit in, you were sent to shake foundations, to shift atmospheres, to activate generations. Chosen one, the world may not be ready for what you carry, but heaven says, release it anyway. Step out, stand tall, speak with fire, move with wisdom, govern with love. The time is no longer coming, the time is now. You're not in the process of becoming, you've arrived. You're not overlooked, you were foreseen. So declare it boldly. Declare it as a war cry in the spirit. Declare it as thunder in your bones. I was seen by Enoch, I was activated by God. Type it, speak it, let the remnant recognize your voice. Let heaven echo your yes. Let hell tremble at your awakening. Because this isn't just a message, it's a divine signal. And if you're still here reading this, it's because you were meant to respond. So go, burn loud, walk boldly, and never again forget who you are. Asterisk, because prophecy didn't just speak about you. Prophecy depends on you. Asterisk, it's time. RIS.